Hey guys, at that theater right there at the Disney lot, we just got out of watching Avatar Fire and Ash. And if you are here, we ask that you do the kindest thing in the world and leave a like on this video. John,
Yes.
what do you remember from the trailer of what this movie's about? That's how we will communicate the plot. Via the memory of what we remember from the trailer.
One trailer.
Yeah.
Jake and the fam, they're back. They're still living amongst the water people. Quaritch, he's still out there. But what? There's another tribe. And they live in a decimated fireplace where they're big mad because Eywa's abandoned them. So Quaritch teams up with those guys and then goes after Jake again.
Is that all in the trailer?
I think so.
Are you sure you're not combining the actual plot of the movie that we just watched?
Might be,
or are you actually, because I'm like, I don't remember all that in the trailer.
in the trailer, we're back on Pandora and there's fire people now.
That sounds more like what I remember.
Sounds more like it.
Well, you just rewatched Avatar 1 and 2, and I saw Avatar 2 twice in the theaters because I love that one so much.
Agree.
Didn't rewatch any of them, but I remember them pretty well. What did you, I want to hear your first thoughts on this. Do you immediately, is it one of the things where you have to think about it first, or do you immediately know where you would place this amongst the three?
It's weird. I think I definitely need to do more thinking to come up with like a solid thing I would say about the movie, but I do know exactly it would fall at second for me. Like Way of Water is number one still because Way of Water has so much tangibility and so much beauty and it lets you bask in that. This is a way plottier movie than that. So, there's a little less of that sort of like, let's bask in the spirituality and more of like, we got some stuff to get done.
Well, what did you feel like this movie did differently than Avatar 1 and 2, and that you really felt this provided something unique? I could have said that a lot more cohesively, but I watched this entire movie with a migraine prior, and this movie in 3D only made the migraine better.
Oh, I can imagine. Especially for 3 hours and 20 minutes. Yeah, this movie takes a lot of the gorgeous, spatial innovations in terms of depicting the underwater biome, depicting stuff in the air, stuff in the forest. It encapsulates all of that innovation that really made the second movie sing, and it applies it to something that has a little bit more of the first film's like plot sensibilities.
Yeah.
About largely military operations and colonialism and terraforming and yada, yada, yada. So, it's kind of like split the difference between the two movies and you have this.
Yeah, I thought that even though James Cameron has said he feels like he can do like 4 or 5 of these movies, this is the kind of film that does feel like it could actually end here. And with what you just said about how it does feel like it sort of splits the difference in certain plot points and even some characters who weren't in part 2, but are here, actually here or have more screen time than they did have in part 1. Part 2, that's what I'm trying to say. Yeah, so some of them were barely in part 2, and now they're here more.
Back from part 1.
So I'm trying to get
for all that shit, then you're going to be benefited.
But it does feel like it kind of has that bookend trilogy effect where it does leave the door open for more, of course, but it can definitely end here. What I thought that this movie provided that was different, or at least was aiming for, is it seems to want to be more emotionally centered. You can make the argument that part 2 already did that stronger than the first one, which I completely do think it did. However, with this one, there are scenes in here that do emotionally challenge the characters. And there are scenes where I heard audience members around me crying their eyes out at certain scenes. And it wasn't like the sweeping spectacle CGI scenes. It was just character scenes.
Or gasping in shock or, applauding when certain people get their desserts.
Yeah, exactly. And so that was part of the cool experience that I thought James Cameron was aiming for here, was to go more at the heart, to go more at the drama. At times, does it feel a bit manufactured? Like, okay, I definitely saw this plot putting like an hour ago happening right now.
Classic tropes in there.
And yeah, so like, because the dialogue itself is like, these movies are not known for great dialogue.
He learns blockbusters.
Yeah, this one in particular, like some of the I feel like he cared even less about writing good dialogue this time around,
or at least lofty dialogue. Yeah.
Yeah, there was even no attempt, but at times that lent itself to a sense of self-awareness. It lent itself to something that had humor that, whether it was intentional or unintentional, it was at times actually kind of funny,
Yeah, it's like we're more used to this world and the humor is also more used to being here, I feel like.
Yeah, and in the trailers, the new character, I don't remember her name, but Ash Girl, the main Ash Girl that you're seeing here.
Chaplin, I think, is the actor, yeah.
What did you think of her?
She was great. I mean, her presence alone is really terrific, and just the vibes that the Ash people bring are really striking and dramatic. It is an aspect of the movie that actually the advertising advertising, that first trailer especially, a lot of the posters made me believe would be a stronger element. You're not really going into the fire world so much as you just have these people now also to deal with.
Yeah.
But a lot of presence and a lot of really fierce, vicious development on a people that we've come to know as relatively peaceful and communal with the land.
Yes, I agree with you, especially on a missed opportunity there, because a lot of this movie, one of my biggest complaints with it was, even though it does leave the door open for a 4 and 5, and while I do find it strong, I would agree with you on where I would place it, is that there are like scenes in here that I think totally outdo part 2, but an overall film, I think Way of Water is a much stronger, more cohesive film, whereas this is a little bit more bumpy, yet it has scenes in here that I'm like, man, I'm really glad we got that stuff. And a lot of that comes down to main Ash Girl, because she is a scene stealer. She provides a very unique type of presence, and she is given a good amount of scenes actually with Stephen Lang's Quaritch that, for myself and for many others walking out of this film, were the highlight of this. That really was like, you're not getting this in any of the other movies. Like, this right here is some truly different stuff, and they're having fun with the bad guys in a way that I actually found quite delicious to chew up on screen. And she was like scary and kind of sensual at the same time, you know.
We got the bloodlust.
Yeah, and she brings out this other side of Quaritch as well, that, you know, scary and a little sexual. You know?
Yeah, he's going more native and more feral while still being the military guy.
Yeah, there's a bit of humor about what they were doing with him. That being said, though, it did seem like they just decided to repeat a lot of plot points and plot beats that you got from already the first 2 films, when there was a whole door they could have explored of what this means for a different type of Na'vi tribe who doesn't believe in the same type of God, has completely different types of belief systems, but they're still indigenous people to this land of Pandora. What else could we do with exploring that? It kind of reminds me of a film that I just saw recently, Dances with Wolves. The main tribe that we're with, and then there's the bad guy tribe, and they don't 3-dimensionalize the bad guy tribe. And that's kind of what I thought they had the opportunity to do here, considering what this movie is leading with. Even though you do get some scenes in here that I'm like, I'm so glad we got that. It did feel like a missed opportunity on truly exploring something special. But, you know, we get repeat stuff with whales and predictable
We love Econ, baby.
Predictable, you know, what's going to happen in the finale. Like, before the finale happens, you're like, I know exactly what's going to happen in this finale, and it all exactly happens.
Yeah. I mean, some of that is the charms of a blockbuster scale production and story, but it was something that I was taken aback by in this movie, because I thought that the game we were playing partly with these, installments would be that everyone takes us and really immerses us in a different place on Pandora. And this one doesn't so much do that, actually. Like, the Ash folks are very much involved with the story, but you're not actually immersing in a whole new side of Pandora. You're actually largely in places that we know already.
Exactly.
So there's a less of a sense of like a great reinvention or a great leap. And I think that's one thing I'm curious to see how audiences respond to, because the first movie obviously was so groundbreaking just for what it was. And then the second movie took that and recontextualized it all over again, where you got that same rush of like, oh my God, I'm seeing something completely groundbreaking. This ground has been broken and we're retreading it. It just so happens that the work is still so top notch that it's hard not to be dazzled. But you do, I think, miss a bit of that wonder of being completely shock and awed by some new creation.
Yeah, I would have to 100% agree with you on that, because the first one has the awe and wonder. Like, even if you don't like the film, you're like, but the effects. And the second one won a lot of people like me over to this, to want to see more, and it does have that wonder and the dazzling new groundbreaking visual effects, and I'm like, I'm sure there's that here, but it just doesn't stand out.
You don't do much of that nature documentary, like, let's just be in the elements. It's it's way more plot oriented, and there's not really a fresh new element beyond the motif, the look of the Ash people, to really set this one apart, and that does make it feel like a direct continuation of Way of Water rather than a new sequel.
Fellow reject, maybe you'll identify with what I'm about to say. I've never had the healthiest relationship with money. It's not because I'm a big spender or something like that. I've just my entire life carried around this general anxiety around it, a constant fear that I'm gonna lose everything, or when I don't have much, I'm never gonna gain anything. Because my family fought about money all the freaking time. And, we lost our home to bankruptcy when I was like much younger. And even though I'm a grown adult now, the fear has just never evaporated. And that is why, with today's sponsor, I signed up for them before they ever partner with us. That is Acorns. I'm going to explain it to you in the most simple way because it's simple to use. Acorns is an investing and savings app that makes your money grow in the background of your life. Just think of it like this. It rounds up your spare change from everyday purchases and invests it for you. So if you buy a cup of coffee for $3.60, Acorns will round it up to $4 and put that extra 40 cents to work for you. And I signed up for them a couple years ago. So believe me, it started off small and it's been paying off in a way that helps bring more comfort in that anxiety financial heart of my life. I've been able to watch that spare change turn into something real. Like sometimes when my mind's just racing or I'm going down my little wormhole, sometimes checking that app actually does bring some comfort. Because when I do, it reminds me I'm building something and I've already built something from it already after a couple years. And you can experience this too. I know people where Acorns, their investment, helped get them out of some real bad financial clutches before. There's someone here, a host at the channel actually. So fellow reject, you can sign up now and Acorns will boost your new account with a $5 bonus investment. So you can join the over 14 million customers who have already saved and invested over $27 billion with Acorns. You could head to acorns.com/rejects or download the app to get started. Link in the description box and pinned comment. And lastly, because we're talking about money, we got to say this. Pay non-client endorsement. Compensation provides incentive to positively promote Acorns. Tier 2 compensation provided potential subject to various factors such as customers' accounts, age, and investment settings. Does not include Acorns fees. Results do not predict or represent the performance of any Acorns portfolio. Investments results will vary. Investing involves risk. Acorns Advisor, LLC, and SEC registered investment advisor. Review important disclosures at acorns.com/reject. All that being said, go to acorns.com/rejects to start growing your money smarter, not harder. Thank you again.
And with it being so, yeah, with that being the case with the visual effects, I don't feel compelled to go watch it again for the visuals or anything like that. In the way how Way of Water made me go, I gotta watch this.
I just gotta go immerse in that.
Yeah,
I just gotta go sit in that.
Yeah. So it didn't provide that for me. And here's the big challenging part, because the way this Avatar franchise works is if you don't really care about the characters, you don't really care about the story, you usually get on board with the spectacle and the action scenes, right? This movie's dependence of being invested for this long really does actually depend on how much you like the characters, especially from Way of Water. Like Jake Sully, you've had since Avatar 1 to be invested into. Neytiri for sure. And Jake and Neytiri are excellent in this movie. I think Jake gets better and more compelling some of his best
performances.
Definitely. No, for real. Like he gets better every film. And in this film, he's got a couple of scenes. I'm like, damn, that's some like, there's a lot of emphasis right now with Avatar that these actors are really acting, guys. Like
We didn't just paint over them with digital makeup. It's the real emotion.
It's real, and there's the thing that I still get caught up in, as much as they sell me, and I know they're really acting their asses off, is that when you do the quote unquote digital makeup over them, it kind of washes away a lot of the things that actors provide for human emotion. Like when you're digitalizing eyes and shaping eyes are usually the connection to the soul. So when you're painting over that, I feel like you still lose some of that human connection. And I'm saying that because Sam Worthington and Zoe Saldaña managed to surpass that big qualm that I have with that. And I was surprised how still effective Neytiri is, how much stronger Jake Sully is. But then you have characters that were introduced in Way of Water. And Corage is always the best. All right, I'm just gonna say that right. I fucking love Corage. Yeah, amazing. He's so fun to watch. So fun. But there's two characters here, Spider and
Kiri.
Oh yeah. Oh, three characters: Spider, Kiri, and the son of the bro
Loak.
Yeah. Now these three characters, 2 out of 3, Loak and Spider in particular. If you didn't really care for them in the last one, you're gonna have to learn to care about them.
Yeah, especially Spider.
For real. Like so much of the emotional plot points when you're seeing people, and I'll say I like Spider here way more than I did in the last one. I forgot his name. Loak. I actually liked him in the last one. I liked him more here. And what they did with 14-year-old Sigourney Weaver, liked her just as much, I would say. Again, I was watching it going like I'm not quite as moved with the rest of the audience. I don't know if it's just because I have a pounding migraine at this moment, or am I just not as invested in these characters? I found myself really compelled when like Jake and Neytiri were on screen, but not as emotionally thralled when it was the other 3 that I just mentioned.
I think it's just the jam-packedness, because the thing about Way of Water, as much as people argue about the length, I feel like the breathing room actually really complements the moments where you are doing like a bunch of plot and battle and stuff like that we have to get through. Whereas this movie feels like it's short on breathing room, and it feels like it's trying to cram a lot into 3 and change hours.
Yeah.
So I think it's mostly that, because this is a type of movie where you'll get to Act 3, or you could get to Act 3 and start to find your brain sort of turning into mush, just because there's so much, and there's lots of places, lots of characters, lots of stuff that's kind of visually familiar from the previous movie. And so, yeah, especially if you've just done a marathon, it might all start to blend together because you don't have quite as much room to just sit and attenuate to the elements, you know?
I mean, I did a marathon recently, and I was like, this is pretty repetitive from the last.
It is. Well, I mean, you break into Act 3, and a lot of the elements are similar elements that are being used in a slightly different way, but yeah.
Yeah, so it does miss some of that lush for me. And yeah, I know like the common thing to say is, of course, like the visual effects dazzling, and they are, but for some reason, this one in particular, it took me like more than an hour to just get lost into it. I kept getting like, this looks fake to, oh, that looks real, but I'm aware that this looks real compared to how fake it looked in the last shot, you know? Like I couldn't quite get past it, and it wasn't until maybe the last half of the movie where I was finally able to surrender to what I was watching. And I didn't quite have that issue with the first 2 Avatar movies, but this one really stood out to me. And I don't know why that was the case. I can't quite.
I'm still trying to put my finger on it too.
The 3D's good. You know, the thing I was saying to a few people, and I posed this question in a sincere way, is that when PS5 games look so cinematic, is it an insult or a compliment to say this movie looks like a PS5 game?
Yeah, one of those games where the cutscenes and the gameplay are the same graphics.
Yeah, but it doesn't quite look like film to me. It doesn't look like I'm watching a movie, though, because everything is so bright and clear. Like I don't know how to speak camera language that well, but the idea of like focus and shadows are not really there. You know what I mean? It's all just a big bright thing on every shot, pretty much.
Yeah, it's
But when there are shadows, I'm like, oh, that looks very like believable and real. It looks like film.
Yeah, when they do very dramatic lighting, it really starts to stand out. And I think everybody knows at this point, like, oh, the way to get by with CGI is you put as much shadow on as possible so you can hide stuff. And so, like, it's really the most striking when they are in broadest daylight and you can sit there and go, damn, like you couldn't hide anything here. Yeah, so you had to put your most expensive effects on screen. But yeah, it is a movie that has, I mean, an effect in every frame, and you have less normal human characters to help sell that to your brain without having your brain go, this looks so real, and I'm aware it's not.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think your immersion will vary, certainly. And I wonder too, we didn't see this in IMAX today, we did see it in 3D. It is, as much as I'm not as compelled as I was with Way of Water to like go back and just be in the world, I am like curious if an IMAX scope would add any additional immersion.
I mean, probably, but I remember when we saw Way of Water the first time, it wasn't an IMAX, and I was like, damn, I was still blown away.
That's fair. I was like, I just want to go back and be with Pyakon. Just take me back to the water.
Yeah, you know, so a lot of familiarity, a lot of, you know, like what James Cameron did Terminator 2 to Terminator 1. Terminator 2 was a lot of similar explored things, but now amplified and added on and refined, I would say. And I thought he did that with Way of Water. And here I found myself going, yeah, it's more of the same with some new stuff.
This, I think, will be the real test as to whether the Avatar franchise can walk on its own legs just based off character and story versus that wow factor of seeing completely new movie magic that we had to make all this brand new tech for. Like, this doesn't have the same level of just like dazzling innovation that the previous one does. Not to slight it, and I do feel bad because it's that Jurassic World thing of like the people always need more dazzling.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's just less of a thing to bowl you over, so now the movie's just got to survive on its own merit.
And hey, you know, for a lot, at the end of the day, this movie's making a shit ton of money because I'm sure a lot of people, maybe not on like the cinephile or film community world, is this franchise a thing that is highly praised. But I imagine amongst audiences that they probably don't give a shit about anything, you know? Like,
James Cameron knows how to make a freaking crowd-pleasing movie.
Yeah, there are people that love this franchise, and I loved the last one. So I kind of like the first one. I love the second, and I liked this one.
I appreciate number 1. I love number 2, and I think this is really cool still. Yeah, but we'll see what number 4 provides us.
Yeah, we'll see if there even is a number 4, because I don't know if this one will quite hit as strong, you know. But if
Really wonder.
But if people are so in love with the characters and they're so in love with the emotion, if like it's a testament that I've never been to an Avatar screening where I heard people crying, so that must mean it's moving for enough people. But yeah, you know, good themes about fatherhood, forgiveness, identity,
The next generation,
Generational-
leading the way,
generational strong.
psychology, and again,
You know what these movies talk about.
strip mining and freaking colonialism, all that good stuff.
I give it a 6.85 out of 10.
Yeah, that's about.
Obscure rating.
I was
That
good.
hates that. Just like
3.5 out of 5. Is
yeah, sure.
6.5, 7 out of 10. Yeah, it was pretty good.
Yeah, it's pretty all right. But what do you think for people who haven't seen it yet? Leave your thoughts down below. Do you wish this franchise would die? Do you want him to make the next Terminator movie and tell me why AI is a good thing now, even though he's doing commercials saying generative AI?
We did it.
That's a different type of.
People did this.
I thought I heard some news report saying you said something else, but this is the first time I'm hearing it out of your mouth, so I'm taking it for
I'm
what it
sure
is.
James Cameron likes a certain percentage of AI. It's just not the part that takes away his authorial stamp.
I'm sure. Next Avatar, and he's like, look, AI could really help me out.
I wrote so many prompts on this movie.
All right, see you guys. Thanks for being here.